And time for that Newsline interview. Now, on Sunday, President William Ruto attended a church service in Donholm. When he rose to speak, he mentioned several issues and he ventured into the issue of affordable housing and home ownership. This is where the president then said that soon employers and employees will start contributing towards a housing fund that will help towards home ownership. What exactly did the president say? What did he mean? That's a conversation we'll be having today. First, let's recap what the president actually said. Watch.
Tuko na housing fund ambayo tunataka kila Mkenya a contribute pesa kidogo. 3% of your income, 3% of your salary. Kama unapata shilingi 10,000, 3% ni shilingi 300 kila mwezi. Uweke katika hiyo hazina. Pale mbele tutakusaidia vile utanunua nyumba. Kila mfanyikazi ambaye anaweka 3%, sheria itamlazimisha yule muajiri wake pia na yeye aweke 3%. Na sisi tutaanza kama serikali, all employees of government.
Okay, so we've seen the reaction since then, both the public and even government employees, unions coming out to question this and also to flatly reject the proposal. That's why we want to have a conversation now with the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Housing and Urban Development, Charles Hinga. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Now, Bwana PS, you've been on the affordable housing program since the previous administration, now into this one.
Mm-hmm.
The issue of a housing fund is not new.
No.
But when the president spoke on Sunday, he spoke about something that was, some areas that were slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, explain what is it that the president meant?
All right, thank you very much for this opportunity to have this conversation. Before I delve into what the president said, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves where we're coming from. Kenyans, in their own wisdom, bequeathed themselves with what we call unqualifiable rights. Those rights are contained in the Constitution. And one of those rights that they bequeath themselves is found in Article 43 of our Constitution, which says that they want decent, affordable housing with adequate, basic services. There is also a document, our Vision 2030, which is our long-term national strategic plan, which again was subjected to Kenyans. And Kenyans aspired that by the year 2030, we want to have a high quality of life and become a middle-income society. Now, one of the biggest public participation exercises that Kenyans do is to vote in governments. And during the campaigns, the politicians do go out and they sell their manifesto. The one thing that you will find in this past election that was common between the key protagonists was the issue of housing. And each one of them was almost mirroring each other, where each party said that they will provide decent and affordable housing. So I think that is very important. Now, when you go to those unqualifiable rights in the Constitution, the only thing we didn't do, and I don't think it was in the, you're supposed to do it in the Constitution, is to say all these rights that we have bequeathed ourselves, how are we going to fund them? And that's a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
And so, therefore, it's important to understand that government has no money of its own. Government has largely two sources of money: taxes or borrowing. When you look at about delivering 1 million houses, if you have to deliver that through the budget, you require just about 3 trillion shillings. That's the entire budget for 1 year.
Yeah.
So that's not money that we have. So we have embarked on a journey to entice investors to deliver through a PPP model. Now, how does it work? Before you get to how it works, we need to ask ourselves, why is our housing market broken? And it is broken because For a country of almost 50 million, we have less than 30,000 mortgages. For a country with the kind of GDP that we have, when you look at the ratio of mortgages to GDP, it's one of the worst in the world. For our country, we know, because we live in this country, our major urban areas have been converting slowly into informal settlement, into slums.
Yeah.
So that is, it shows that there is a broken system. And how do you fix a broken system? Okay, you can't wish your way out of it. You have got to make tough decisions. So how did we determine that we are going to address this issue of housing with the kind of price tag that we are talking about? We said we are going to identify the key drivers of why housing in Kenya is unaffordable and unavailable. And we discovered there were four key drivers, excuse me. The first one is the issue of land. Land in Nairobi, according to the recent study, is the most expensive in the continent. So you can't have expensive land and affordable housing in the same sentence. You got to do something about it. That's why the government of Kenya made a conscious decision and said that we will provide land at no cost to Kenyans because government is the holder of that land.
Yeah.
The other one is the cost of construction. Cost of construction in Kenya is very, very high. So again, we took away a lot of taxes that pushes the cost of construction high so that we can bring down the cost of housing. The third one was the cost of processes. Almost every place you go, you're going to be charged. County will charge you, NCA will charge you, and so on and so forth. And the last one is the issue of financing. And the financing is both on the buyer side and on the seller side, on the people who are developing.
On the developer
So
side.
those are the four issues. So therefore, with that context in mind, we have determined and we have benchmarked and looked at countries that actually address this issue of affordable housing, because there are countries that have done that. How did they do it? They went into a culture of saving. Now, your rider I was in the previous government, and this issue of the housing fund is not new, and that is so true. So what did we do at that time? And what are some of the lessons that we have learned that we are trying to improve on? Now, we attempted to push the issue of mandatory contribution. Now, in fact, it is mandatory saving. Now, when we listen to Kenyans, majority of them, they say, when we explain to them, they say, oh, that's not how we understood it, because they understood it as a tax. Tax is not your money. Once you pay, it is not your money. It goes. But this mandatory saving is your money. You either get a house or you can convert it into a pension after a period of time. So we realized that we did not bring Kenyans on board the way they should be.
So let's then start from there. Explain the concept of a housing fund.
The concept of a housing fund says that if you get an investor who wants to participate in this housing program, and remember, there are houses that are being built by the same investors, but today they're only focused on 3% of our population. Why? Because they've determined that 3% is where they can make their money, and those are the ones that can afford.
Just 3% based on income?
Based on income.
Okay.
3% based on income. So that's where they are. So how do you move them from focusing on 3% to the 97%? All right? Now, when we say that you want a Juakali artisan to own a home, they look at and they say, no, that person is not bankable. They have lumpy cash flows. Okay, so this person, when you look at their income profile for a whole year, there's no 1 month it is consistent. So how does that person become bankable? They will automatically dismiss that. Now, I don't know whether you know the dichotomy of our workforce. Almost 18 to 20 million of our people are in the informal business. Only 2 to 3 million are in the formal. So therefore, how do you entice that developer who is only focused on the 3% to this other one? There has to be something that stands in between, and that is the housing fund. Because the housing fund basically says, let's all pool our money together. It's no different from a SACCO. We all come together around an agenda, and our agenda is housing. We contribute our money within a set rules, okay? Then that money, we give the developer the land, They build the houses like we did in Park Road. We pay the developer. The developer does not have to talk about Wanjiko, the Mama Mboga. They don't have to talk about that because they've been paid and they've gone.
From the fund?
From the fund.
Okay.
And then we are left, okay, dealing with Wanjiko. Now, because the housing fund is patient money, we have not borrowed money, it is our own collective saving. It allows us to be able to structure this repayment based on the size of your pocket. So if you can afford 2,000 shillings, okay, within the housing fund, you will find a house where we can be able to finance you for 2,000 shillings. And how do we do that? There are two things that you play with.
Yeah.
Period of time, but because it is patient money, we can allow you to pay for 30 years. We can even allow you, after 30 years, to hand over to your son or your daughter. It is called multi-generational.
Okay.
That is how this national circle called a housing fund works. But we realized we didn't explain to the Kenyans in that level of detail. The other part is addressing the issue of those that already have homes. Because they're saying, why are you forcing me? Okay?
To contribute into a fund.
To contribute into a fund.
And have an alternative way.
And I already have a home.
I already have a house.
Okay? So what we said is that, again, we want to rally everybody into the culture of saving. So that we are asking you to help us to save the money so that we can address this social issue. Because these informal settlements are not just going to be in Kibera. Sooner than later, and you can see in the most affluent parts of Nairobi and other major cities, there is an informal settlement coming up. So it is our national goal that we are able to address this issue of housing. So this is a national saving. We are all putting our money together. Now, after 7 years, if you have saved into the fund and you have not gotten a house, okay, because the demand is higher than the supply, so chances are you have not gotten a house. You have the right to pull out your money. You can take that money and take it to your pension, okay? It is within your powers to do that. And remember, you will get a return. But I actually want to
after 7 years,
yes,
you can go into the kitty,
yes,
and pull out 100% of what you've contributed.
Plus a return.
Plus a return.
Correct.
Is it a guaranteed return?
No, it's not a guaranteed return. It is, remember, first of all, as the funds are coming in, because you see, construction is over a period of time.
Yeah.
And you're not constructing everything at the same time. So by our own estimation, we're going to be getting about 9 billion a month through this national saving plan.
Yeah.
But we're not using 9 billion every day. Okay? So we have hygienes whereby we have got a custodial bank, we have got an administrator, and we have got an investment manager. These are totally independent. The custodial is holding the money.
Only
for
holding
you.
the money.
The administrator deals with the
doing
statements,
the
making sure the reconciliation, and every month they give you a statement.
Okay.
And the investment manager or the asset manager makes sure that they go and invest that money and get a good return.
Where do they
so the
invest
money, they can invest in the bond market. They can invest in money market, but it's very restricted because we don't want them to go into high risk, okay? But we can get good returns, okay? For example, in treasury bonds, which are yielding maybe 10 or so%. So this money is expected, it is also going to be growing, all right? So we are able to offtake the units that are being built by the developer. We are able to house as many Kenyans based on the size of their pocket, all right?
Okay.
The fund, and they are repaying because remember, when they get in, they're repaying. So the fund keeps on growing.
Okay.
And that's how after 7 years, you can decide you want to be exited.
Okay.
And we will exit you.
I get the basics now.
Okay.
Of the housing fund. So when you rolled it out the first time in 2018, headwinds.
Yes.
Because COFEC and the Federation of Kenya Employers,
Correct.
plus others, went to court
Yes.
and challenged this. What was the main bone of contention?
The main bone of contention, actually, there were about 14 litigants. The main bone of contention was public participation.
Okay.
Now, are we guilty? Yes, we are guilty. Because, you see, this issue of public participation, sometimes we take it as though it is an exercise to tick the box. For us, it is not about ticking the box. It is bringing everybody along with us.
Making everybody understand.
Making everybody understand.
Okay.
Now, what, for example, I have said, a lot of people are calling it a tax. It is not a tax. Because a tax, you don't get it back.
So at that time, That was the main thing that they went to court with.
Yes,
They
that was
said,
the main thing that they went to
You're
court.
already introducing this.
Yes.
You haven't engaged the people.
You haven't
People
not
don't
engaged us.
understand.
Correct.
Okay.
And then number two,
Yeah.
issue that they raised was, hang on a second. I look at your plan. The plan that I'm seeing, the houses are only coming up in Nairobi and the major affluent areas. I don't want to live in Nairobi. Maybe as Eric, when you retire, I don't know where your shags is, you're saying, hey, I want to go back to Bungoma. Now, do you have a program or a scheme that is coming up in Bungoma? Then if you don't have one, why then are you forcing me, okay, to save into this while I want to have
My
a
plan
home?
is to own a home.
Exactly,
in
back
Bungoma.
home, in Bungoma. So that was the other issue, which we have now also addressed in this, what I call a retake.
Okay.
You know, when you sit for an exam and you have a retake. So for us,
So this is it.
This is a retake.
So at that point, when they went to court, that's when you started taking in the feedback. You use this as an opportunity to also understand where you had taken the missteps.
Correct.
Now, during your vetting this time to be the PS, this is one of the issues that you raised.
Correct.
And you told members of parliament, you know what, we had actually come up with this plan and we feel that it was frustrated in the courts.
Yes.
So then you go in and you're appointed as PS again. What did you do different?
So we have done a lot of things differently. So the first thing is our level of engagement. And let me give you an example. You know, KOTU was one of the litigants, but KOTU withdrew. Teachers Union was one of the litigants. They withdrew.
Which one?
NAT, the one was led by Sosion.
Yes.
They withdrew. Why did they withdraw? It is because when we sat down with them and they went through what was in it for them in this program, they were like, but hang on a second. This program is actually designed with the worker in mind.
Okay.
This thing works for us because let me ask you a question. And I'm going to use factual numbers. Let's take Park Road, which is one of the schemes that we have built, completed, and occupied. A 3 million unit in Park Road is costing 7.6 million in around Ngara. So, Eric, you want to tell me you will not be proud to own a home at 3 million as opposed to 7.6 million? I'm sure you would. If you go through our program, we are going to finance you at 9%, fixed for a long time. Today, those who took mortgages before, and there is a lot of pain at the moment because globally we are in what is called a high interest rate regime.
Yeah.
People are seeing their disposable income shrink. In our case, 20 years from now, you will still be paying 9% because it is fixed. So when you explain to somebody, they're like, hang on a second, this is actually very nice for me. When you say that the bag of cement that is going to go to constructing your unit has no VAT. Now, VAT is almost 10% in total of the construction cost. That is a saving. So you sit back and say, but hang on a second, this one works for me. As an employee, I tell you, as long as you are contributing towards a home and you have not gotten a home, you get what is called an affordable housing relief. So in other words, your pay slip is different. Government is giving you money back as you're saving. Then you ask yourself, oh, how can that be a bad thing? When you start paying your mortgage, government gives you up to 300,000 back as mortgage relief. It is in the law. But people say, hang on a second, but that cannot be a bad thing. So, and this is something that we are at pains with. There is so much good, and I can say that there's so much good.
How you explain it to
how
people.
we explain to our people is a big
I'm
problem.
going to ask you the question of public participation. But before I get there, there's what now we've heard from the president. So he's come out and announced it like, it's beginning tomorrow. Of course, he didn't say when it's beginning.
Yeah.
So we don't know when it's beginning.
Right.
He mentioned 3% contribution. The previous scheme was 1.5% per employer, 1.5% employee.
Okay.
Is it now going to be different? Are you raising it from 1.5 to
So
3%?
let me actually, you asked me a question which I haven't answered. So what did actually the president say?
Yeah.
And there is a second part of that conversation that we didn't play. So what the president said is that we have a plan we are building towards. This is the ideal situation, okay? But however, we want to start what is called a participatory fund, where he says that as GOK, as a government of Kenya, we are also an employer. And by the way, Section 31 of the Employment Act imposes an obligation on every employer to provide homes to their employees. In fact, it is so obligatory, it says close to where they work. So we as an employer have said that we are going to start the participatory journey. This past supplementary budget, I'm sure you remember, it was a supplementary budget where budgets were cut. Yep. We were cutting 300 billion. Yep. I am one of the few state departments that are actually received additional money. So whatever the president was talking about has already happened. I have already been given the first 1 billion. Okay?
To go towards the housing fund.
To go towards, but now for the civil servants. And that's why he said, civil servant, he didn't say that we're going to start deducting you tomorrow. So he said, you, if you're a civil servant, okay?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, you can elect to start contributing. If you contribute 10,000, out of the kitty that I have already set aside, I'm also going to contribute 10,000 to you. And that is your money.
That's what the president meant.
That is what the president meant.
It didn't come out that way.
This is a church service. This is not an affordable housing conference.
So number one,
expect,
it's still voluntary.
It is voluntary as we speak.
So let's start with the civil servants.
Yes.
It is not mandatory.
No, it's not mandatory.
It is voluntary.
It is voluntary.
For a civil servant.
Yes.
So if a civil servant elects to get onto the housing fund,
correct,
they contribute 3% of their gross.
So the 3%, to be quite honest, is a ceiling.
It's their basic.
Is the basic.
Okay.
So we are saying
up to 3%.
Up to 3%
of their basic income.
Of their basic income.
And then the government will match shilling.
Will match shilling for shilling to what they've saved.
Okay.
Okay.
If any other employee wishes to do this,
yes,
what do they have to do?
Now, that's what the second part of the conversation. And he said, and I'm urging other employers to start on the same journey because, and by the way, we have started. So we have called several employers. We've sat down with them. We've sat down with CEOs of the banks, even KTN. Yeah. We called your team and you are represented. And we said, what are you doing as an employer towards providing housing for your employees? And each one of them is doing something. But what was unanimous is that whatever they are doing is not enough. And I'll tell you why. Today, as we speak, government provides civil servants, okay, with a housing scheme, okay, with a loan of 5%. I am the administrator of that fund. I chair that fund. So I can confidently tell you that as much as, yes, that is available, very few people have participated. The people that have participated are at the top. And there are two reasons for that. The first one is, even if you take the lower cadre, middle to lower cadre, even if they go and take the loan, where is the inventory? There's no supply, okay, for the affordable. Okay, so remember, there was a study done by the World Bank in 2017 that showed that an average house in Nairobi in 2017 cost 11 million shillings. So at 11 million shillings, how many people can afford? Okay, it's 3%. So the rest of the Kenyans, now the facility is there, but you can't be able to take it.
You can't participate.
And then on the other schemes, the employers are saying the top management take up the money and then it is depleted. So the truth of the matter is employers are doing something they're not doing enough. So they are happy with this arrangement of a participatory housing fund, but it must be coupled with supply.
Okay. Let's now come to public participation first.
Yes.
Okay. Number one, and the fund that you've just talked about, this is the National Housing Development Fund.
Yes, that's a National Housing
Development Fund. It exists. It's under the National Housing
Act. It exists. We are going through an amendment of regulations, okay, so that we can accommodate certain things.
So is this going to be different from the new housing fund?
No, there's some tweaks we're going to do on
you're improving on the existing.
We're improving on the existing, but
National Housing Development Fund.
The existing one today allows us to collect voluntary. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the regulations are there. Okay. There are certain things which are not very firm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you need to go back to Parliament once you've?
Yes, we have to go through. We have to go through Parliament. We'll have to go through public participation.
These regulations.
Absolutely.
When does this begin?
The journey has already begun.
I think that's a conversation. Yeah. If you want to bring in, a new fund, and you have got to go to the people and explain to them.
Yeah.
This is it. We saw with the Hustler Fund, for
Yes.
example, there was a roadshow across the country
Yes.
for public participation.
Correct.
And then it went to Parliament.
Correct.
And the regulations were passed.
Yes.
And then the Hustler Fund was rolled out. Well, albeit in the wrong format. The
Right.
fund started and then the board was constituted later, but that's something else.
That's
But in this particular case,
Yeah.
when are you beginning the public participation?
So
because
we've-
the president seems to be speaking as if public participation
Oh no,
has
no,
already
but
taken
public
place.
participation has begun.
Or was that
You
the
see-
beginning of
you
public
see,
participation?
you need to define what is public participation. And that's what I said. Sometimes we do it wrong. Because I believe, if you look at almost the minimum of what we need to do, is take those regulations, publish them for, I think, 30 days, okay? We will get comments, okay? We go through those comments, see, okay, this one makes sense, let's accommodate. Oh, well, this is a nice one, let's take whatever. This one here, let's pack it for now. And we have done public participation. They go to Nakuru, whatever, have a forum and so on and so forth. People register, and we say that is public participation. But we made a conscious decision, okay, to do public participation differently.
How so?
The first thing that we did was to make sure that the elected leaders, okay, actually understand this program. Why? It is important for elected leaders to understand because they are the people's representatives. There is a better chance if they understand for them to explain, whether it's even in their vernacular or whatever it is, they trust them than they trust me. Okay? So what have we done? So we've already sat down with members of parliament. Okay? We have taken them, we had a sitting of 5 hours, non-stop, with members of parliament from the ruling party, going through it blow by blow. And that was still not enough. Okay? We have done it with governors and so on and so forth. Now, level 2. We have gone across the country and we have mapped where these units are going to be. Okay. As I sit with you right now, I have a database, a pipeline of 569 parcels of land in every corner of this country.
We're going to talk about
166 of them we have verified and they're good to go. Now, why is that important? Because we don't want a mechanical public participation. I want to come to your backyard and we say, there is a development coming up in Kasipul Kabondo. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, this development, we're going to do 200 units in your own backyard.
Okay.
Okay? In the process, you go and explain, so how do I participate? Okay? Start saving today. If you're employed, you start saving. Your employer should start contributing on your behalf. So we are getting granular in our explanation. Number 2, we've already had several launches of affordable housing programs. And we are using those platforms to explain ourselves to the Kenyans. Okay? We take those as public participation. Yes, we don't have a register where we ask you to register that you've come for that.
Yeah, you don't have a feedback mechanism.
No. We have a lot of feedback mechanism.
During the launches?
Oh, absolutely. We do have a feedback mechanism.
Okay.
Okay? So we have a targeted public participation program. Okay?
But PS, before you roll out this whole thing, you need to have anchored it in law.
But you forget what I'm saying. There is already an existing...
There's an
There's existing law. So today, as Eric, if you want to join in, there's an account, there is an USSD, you start contributing. Okay? It's there, it exists. In fact, as we speak, I have close to 2 billion shillings of Kenyans that have saved. I have their money as we sit. Majority of them had saved towards Park Road. And because Park Road was few units, when it was sold out, and they said, so what do we do? They said, I want to be number 1 on the queue for the next one.
Was the case in court concluded?
No, there was never, the case was never concluded.
Why?
Because we exited from the court.
Because everybody withdrew.
We withdrew.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the issue that they were raising is that you are launching this and you haven't yet engaged the people to...
No. But you're confusing issues. You see, the mandatory contribution. I cannot take your money, okay?
That was an issue.
Yes. So we have not taken anybody's money through a mandatory contribution.
And that was contained in the regulations.
No. Oh, that one was repealed. The regulations have already been repealed.
When were they repealed?
December 2021 December 2021.
And the new ones?
Which ones?
What?
No, whatever was making it mandatory was removed.
And a new one updated and passed in Parliament?
Latif, what was removed there was the mandatory contribution.
Yes.
The rest of the fund, why would you want to remove for someone where someone wants to contribute voluntarily? There was no problem with that. So the one that we took out was where we were imposing a mandatory contribution. I don't know whether you're with me.
I'm trying to be with you here. So what had gone to Parliament and was passed as regulations to the...
It was actually not a regulation, it was a statute.
It was a statute.
So Section 31 of the Employment Act had been amended. And Section 31 of the Employment Act there was an insertion where every employer was supposed to deduct 1.5%, and they add their 1.5% to the fund.
Yes.
So, and there was a capping of 2,500 shillings. So that bit was removed. It's no longer in law.
It was amended already.
It's already amended.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you now have
is status quo.
With just
a voluntary
scheme that is running.
Correct.
Who's managing this? So we've got the three arms.
It sits with National Housing Corporation. It sits at National Housing Corporation, and we have 3 independent companies managing it through a competitive process.
Okay.
So the custodial bank is KCB.
Okay.
We have got Britam as a fund managers.
Okay.
And we have Zamara as the administrators.
The administrator.
Correct.
And it's sitting with the National Housing Fund.
It's sitting with the National Housing Corporation.
And so the National Housing Corporation board is responsible for
Correct.
this. And the Secretariat of the National Housing is responsible for this.
Absolutely.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
Those are the ones that are responsible for answering any question.
Yeah, absolutely.
With regards to
if you have any queries, I've not seen my statement, and so on and so forth, those are the ones administratively.
Okay. Now, what is the intention this time? Do you want to
We are looking at 3 options. So there is what is called the fund being anchored under the PFM Act.
Yes.
There is either looking at it as an independent fund, or there is the status quo. Yeah. So where we are right now, we have a task force.
Is considering whether to have a parallel fund.
Oh, no, whether to re-establish a new fund, okay, right?
Yeah.
Under the PFM Act, okay, which has got its own rules and regulations.
Yeah.
Or have it as a separate fund. Now, one of the issues why having it as a separate fund is one of the things that we're looking at. If you look at COTU, for example, the basis for getting out of court was to say, once you establish this mandatory fund, we must be represented the same way they are represented in NSSF.
Yeah.
The current statutes for National Housing Corporation does not allow that because there is already an existing board.
Yeah.
So we are looking at, can we have it as an independent fund, okay, like the Hustler Fund or the Sports Fund, as independent, okay? So that's one of the ways we are looking at it. The other way we are looking at it is whether there is administrative action that can be taken, right, to bring in people's representatives to oversight the money. Because again, when we go for public participation, what do we hear most? I don't trust you.
It's a trust issue.
It's a trust issue. There's a trust deficit. So we can't go around and say that there is no trust deficit. There's a trust deficit. So then how do you build trust? You build trust by, first of all, doing the things the right way.
Yeah.
Ensuring, for example, there is a fair way of locating those houses.
Yeah.
Okay. But also make sure that the management of that money, okay, that's why you have the person who is making the decision on the investment is not the PS for housing, is an independent fund manager. I cannot instruct them. All right?
Yeah.
They make the investment decision.
Yeah.
So in other words, we are saying that your money will be safe.
And you can contribute anything up to 3%.
No, you can contribute even more.
Even more than 3%.
You can contribute even more than 3%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the other question, of course, is on the houses themselves.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the supply. So the president, since taking office, has launched several projects. There is the Langata project. There is the Shauri Moyo. There is Ziwani. There's he's gone
Mavoko.
to Mavoko.
We're in Homa Bay.
Homa Bay has launched one.
Yeah.
How many have you launched so far?
The first one was actually at meteorological site where we're doing 13,500 units. So that one has commenced. We have the second one was in Mavoko, which was the 5,500 units that we are doing there. Then we have got Shauri Moyo. Okay, we have Shauri Moyo, we have about 5,000 units. That also has taken off. We have Kibera, which is what we call Soweto.
Yeah.
Soweto B. where we've got, again, about 4,500 units. So those ones are also under construction. We have Homa Bay, which has, in total is going to be 2,000, but the first phase is 200, which are under construction as we speak. Yeah. So in total, from since he took office, we are just north of 41,000 that is under construction.
41,000 units under construction.
Under construction at various stages of construction.
How do you identify these sites?
How do we identify the sites? So we, as a State Department, look at land that is owned by government. Because remember, we are making the land available at no cost. Two, we also ask counties to identify land. So the bulk of the 569 parcels that I spoke about is coming from county governments, okay, where they're sending land to us and they're saying, hey, come and build in our counties.
Okay.
The third part, which has not really taken off, is where private sector is saying, I also have land in good location. How can I participate in this affordable housing program? We have not really cracked that one, but these are the two we have cracked them.
Okay. What's the process of now formalizing this? Let's say piece of land in Homa Bay, it's being held in trust by the county government of Homa Bay. Should the county government of Homa Bay go to the people and seek to get authority to allocate this land?
Absolutely.
And is this the beginning? Is this what is happening in those counties?
It is happening. And remember, also, by law, the county must go, the county governor, okay, must go to the assembly. Now, when they go to the assembly, one of the first things that they have to submit is public participation. So that's why I said, for us, public participation is not the 30-day thing that we do and then we go and say, but we did public participation. It is being cascaded at the lowest level and is being done at various opportunities.
Now, where does the national government come in?
National government is coming in at two levels, okay? Number one, national government has had a conversation with investors because there are certain what we call them offtake obligations that we have been able to give to the investors comfort at the national level, the national government level. We have not finessed that at the county level. You know, the county PPP framework exists in law, but we don't even have one county PPP. So national government, we have signed MOUs with the counties. So they give us the land, okay, but we're holding it in trust for them, okay? And the county has a lot of say. So they participate in the procurement process. In fact, they chair the negotiations because each county will say, for this parcel of land, I also want a fire station, I want a school, I want a clinic, because you must have the basic services closer to where the people were building the houses.
That's true.
Yeah. So the counties are participating in the process. It is their project, it is for their people. And the employment opportunities are for the county people.
Are you advertising for the people to participate?
Published
in the private sector.
Published in the newspapers.
Okay.
So the first round, we did it was in November last year, okay? We advertised 59 parcels of land from across the country. Big parcels around Nairobi and the major urban areas. We had a queue of investors. We are finalizing the negotiation as we speak, okay? Out of those, we have the success rate is about 23. Okay, so 23 we are negotiating. We had many that didn't have any takers, okay? Now, the second round, we brought in a lot of land from Western Kenya. You know, we have Bungoma, we have a lot of Nyamira, Kisii, Migori, and that side of the world, and a few in Nandi. We had Nandi and the North and Central Rift. And then we had also Kitui and all those other places. Now, and this is a tragedy, and that's why now we go back full circle to why the housing fund. Out of the 50 parcels that we advertised in the second round, we only had one bidder. And that one bidder was bid for two parcels. One in Nyamira and one in Kisii. Meaning 48 parcels of land, nobody was interested. Okay? Now, why is that the case? So even after providing land,
they did not think that there'll be off-takers.
They don't think there is a market. They don't think there is a market.
Okay.
Now, we've been to Maralal. Is there a market for housing in Maralal? Yes, there is a housing. There is but if you tell an investor, go to Maralal today and start the construction, they're going to say, hang on a second, do you have something in South Sea? I will take that any day. Okay? So, now, again, then we go back to where I started. we have a responsibility as government to provide housing, not for Nairobians, for the entire country. And that is why now we have started a new program, okay, which is called 200 units per constituency, okay?
Yeah.
Now, the 200 units per constituency, we are finalizing the funding plan for it, okay? And we're going to roll it out very soon. Actually, maybe by the end of this financial year, we're going to start rolling out. So that as now the people start joining these participatory funding schemes, the participatory voluntary schemes, there is units coming up at their own backyards. Now, I wrote to every member of parliament and I told them, I want to do a housing project in your own backyard. Identify land. And also, as you're doing it, can we see how we marry that with your CDF? So that as you do a school, I'm doing a housing scheme and I'm doing a hospital facility. We have received so many parcels of land from members of parliament. And of course, members of parliament don't own the land. So what do? They go, they identify land either owned by national government or an entity of national government, or they go and sit down with their governors. And they say, this land is in my constituency, is county land. Can we put it in the pot for that participation?
What percentage are you, let me start the question from this point. Is there a policy that is guiding this entire process?
Absolutely.
For example, one that says in every housing project, X% shall be social housing.
Yes, there is.
Then the other shall be affordable housing.
And it's available on bomayangu.go.ke.
What is the percentage of social housing per project?
So the percentage, it's a fifth. What is a fifth? 20%.
Yep.
Yeah.
So in every project,
20% is social housing.
Is social housing.
Okay.
How do you identify the beneficiaries of that social housing?
It is a willing buyer, willing seller, number one. However, if that project is, for example, in Kibra, okay, the beneficiaries are already known.
How so?
How so? Because Soweto B, that piece of land, okay, is government land, but obviously people came and occupied it.
Yeah.
So we sat down with the people and we told them, look, we want to build for you decent houses because they have, you know the kind of housing they're living in. And they said, okay, so what do? We said, vacate, give us time to get an investor. They come and they build. This is how much you're going to pay. Start saving now. And we give them cards. And we give them an account. And the only thing they asked us was, allow us to demolish our own houses. And we gave them time to demolish. So that piece of land was previously occupied. So the first people that will have to come in there are the people who are there. Then, because they were not storied, we are now going to do, say, about 9-10 stories in Kibra. And previously they were not storied. It means we can go to now Kibra's Soweto C, okay, and we do what is called decant. So we can tell the people in C, move in to B, okay, free up the space, we build, we bring an investor, they build, then you move in there. Now, let me tell you something which is a very interesting fact. Because we've already done Soweto A. It's already done. It's about 832 units. It is the best performing portfolio in the entire portfolio that we are looking at. The people in the informal settlements, actually, they are paying religiously. You know why? When they remember where they came from, they had a flying toilet. Now they have a toilet inside the house. They have a kitchen. They have a proper house. They have a shop downstairs. They will never default. So this program is working.
So all this number of houses that you already have versus the number of people who are in the fund, don't you see that you are already promising the developer that there's going to be offtake, and yet you don't actually have?
How do you say that when I have about 330,000 people that have registered? I actually don't have enough units.
Are they contributing?
The ones that are contributing are over 30,000. And by the way, even without...
And that was my point.
What is your point?
You have 30,000 contributors. You have 500,000 units coming up.
But Eric, houses don't come up in one day. Okay? All right? Houses don't come up. The first step...
Your government is pledging to do 250,000 in a year.
Yes.
right? That means every year there should be 250,000 houses in the market
No,
that are
come
ready to come
on.
out.
How do you build 250,000 in 1 year?
You tell me.
No, that's what
That's
we're
the
starting.
promise.
No, but I mean, a housing scheme takes about 3 years. So, but we
So when you
will
say
start.
you'll have 250,000 units
They
in a
will
year,
not be completed. You cannot.
is it 250,000 units under construction?
Under construction.
Or is it 250,000 units completed?
We will
for
have
occupation?
started 250,000. So actually, the number is 200,000 because the market is producing 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah,
1 million houses
Yes.
in 5 years.
in 5 years.
1 million houses completed within 5 years.
They will
or
not be
1 million
completed. A
houses
million
under
houses will be.
construction?
Some of them will be completed, and some of them will be under
What's
construction.
the target to have how many houses completed by 2027?
I mean, I think you're looking at maybe about 300,000 will be completed.
so by that time, you ought to have promised your developers that you have at least 300,000 people ready to take
We will
houses.
have more than that. We will have more than that. Now, let me give you an interesting fact. Before the first time this thing was stopped by the courts,
Yeah.
do you know how many people are registering every day they want a house? If you went to GPO, the Huduma Center there,
Yep.
people are queuing from 4 in the morning. Okay?
Yep.
So the 350,000, the 330 to 350,000, I don't know where the number is, today on Bomayangu, okay, are not people who just registered because they were bored. These are people who are actually looking for an option. Because unlike you and I, okay, this is their only option of owning a home. How else? Where do you get a 1 million house? And where do you pay 2,000 shillings and own a home? It's only through a program like this one. So whatever else is left in the market,
Okay.
yeah. So, okay. So let me give you then a better statistic, because whatever you're using is not a good statistic. When we did Park Road was 1,370 units. When we advertised, because we advertised in the papers,
Yep.
we told Kenyans now buy. Okay. Do you know how many people contributed?
How many?
33,000 people. Against how many units? 1,370.
Yeah.
The demand far outstrips the supply. So we don't have a problem at all.
Once those are completed.
No, they started paying before they were completed.
Okay.
Yeah, and now they are proud owners. I have a Juakali guy there, I have a Matatu driver, I have a tout, I have a shoe shiner, you know, I have everybody living in there.
P.S. Final question. You have an institution that's under you, the National Housing Corporation. Okay. What role is it playing in this whole conversation?
No.
Because I'm not hearing it owning land. I'm not hearing it participating in the construction. It's not a developer. It's not participating in selling the houses. So what is NHC going to be doing?
That's what they do.
What?
National Housing Corporation has the largest parcel of land. National Housing Corporation is one of the biggest developers in the country. They advertise every day.
So are you saying that part of the lands, pieces of parcels of land
Yes.
that you've advertised are
And National
NHC
Housing.
owned?
In fact, the majority of them are National Housing Corporation land.
Are you saying that some of these projects that you've already launched across the country, the developer is NHC?
Homa Bay is NHC.
100% NHC?
100% NHC. They advertised Kirinyaga the other day. There is Nyandaro, which they advertised the other day. So NHC is very active in the market.
So NHC is competing with the other private developers.
I don't know whether competing, but NHC is the delivery arm of government on the affordable housing.
But basically what I'm asking, just to get a clarity, is when you advertised for all the parcels of land in the first round,
Yes,
was NHC also participating in?
correct. So
Pitching.
today, in Park
The
Road,
developer.
Park Road is in whose name?
I don't know.
It is NHC. So they own it and they manage it.
Who developed?
It was a private party. Because
Contracted by NHC?
so you're failing to understand the model.
Yes.
The model is I give you a piece of land, you develop,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
You sell, okay? All right? To the fund, we pay you, you go, then we allocate. So, in this particular case, this piece of land was owned by civil servants,
Okay.
okay? Park Road.
Yes.
So they were contracted by civil servant. The investor came in and they built. We transferred the entire program to National Housing Corporation. National Housing Corporation is running a TPS for us and is managing that estate. We are doing the same thing for Starehe. We're doing the same thing for Shauri Moyo, because National Housing Corporation is our body corporate that delivers the agenda for us.
And where are the civil servants?
Sorry?
Where are the civil servants?
No.
The original owners of Park Road.
No, they were given the first right.
So they came in now into just owning.
You see,
A section of property.
Park Road had 39 units.
Yes.
Now I've done 1,370. So close to 600 as civil servants. It's fair play, right?
Sounds
39, 660. It's
Final
a fair
question,
play.
because the director is telling me we've run out of time.
Yeah.
Just to clarify again, what the president said on Sunday does not mean that there's deduction.
No,
First of all, it's not mandatory.
it is not mandatory.
And it does not begin immediately.
No, it doesn't begin immediately. And you're the first one to report it. And I wish, one news outlet misreported. Then all of you didn't listen for yourself because it looks like everybody latched onto it.
Well, when you listen to the president,
No, but you didn't play the entire clip.
you don't hear. We were watching the entire clip.
Yes.
All right. What we just played today
Yes.
was a bit of it.
What
But at
he
no
said
point was the
is that
president
as
explaining
an
everything.
employer, he said, as government, we have started the journey.
Yeah.
We are walking the talk. We have put down $1 billion. In the new financial year, there's another $5 billion that we are putting into the kitty.
Yeah.
So if you're a civil servant and you're watching this show tonight, okay, and by the way, and this is very important, yes, you say there was a lot of noise, okay, and yes, there is noise, but who creates the largest amount of noise? And that's why we said we need to bring everybody on board. So the people who create a lot of noise are, first of all, people who say, why are you forcing me? I already have something.
Yeah.
Okay? But they're not the majority. So tonight we are proud that if you take Central Bank, for example, Central Bank bought 144 units in Park Road. For who? For their guards, not just staff. Not for Governor Njoroge and his whatever. He bought the houses for the lowest cadre. Okay? Why? Because Central Bank has its own housing scheme. None of them will ever own a home because they cannot get a 1 million unit like in Park Road. They cannot get the best terms like we got in Park Road. I don't know whether you get it. So if you're a civil servant and you're watching me out there, you're not going to be deducted without the law ever being put in place and without you being consulted. But however, we are telling you that we have started the journey and 1 billion has already been contributed on your behalf. So all you need to do is to say, I have contributed my 5,000, please contribute my 5,000.
So who should they tell?
Eh?
Should they write to the head of civil
No,
servant? How do they participate? If a civil servant is watching this tonight and I'd like to
civil servants have got their own fund. It's a civil servant housing fund.
Yeah.
So that's where they write. So even when they buy the units, the one who finances them is civil servant mortgage scheme. So that's all they need to write to. And there is an account. Okay, I'm sure you've been seeing some stuff. Everybody's been asking, is this fake news? Because I have written about Ruiru and I've said civil servants start buying.
Yeah.
Because these houses are under construction. We're going to be launching Thika in 2 weeks' time. As we do that, we're going to write to civil servants and tell them this was your land. You have the first right of refusal, but please choose very quickly because we also want to open it up to other Kenyans. We have Embu, which is complete. Okay, about 220 units, 45 have already gone with civil servants. Now we are opening it up to Embuans to also buy, okay? Because we have advertised to civil servants, they've taken whatever they want to take, we are releasing the rest to the market. So,
Final, Director. Integrity of the people who participate in this and who end up owning. Of course, the issue of trust.
Yeah.
How do I know that Hinga is not just buying all these houses through various proxies,
Okay.
and he ends up being the largest homeowner in Kenya?
So first of all, you can't own more than one unit, okay?
As an individual.
As an individual, because your ID and your PIN number, your KRA PIN number is your identification, okay?
Okay.
So you can't stop Kenyans from being enterprising, okay? But you cannot buy more than one unit.
One PIN number can only own one unit. Across the country.
Across the country. Number two, okay? You cannot sell that unit before 7 years. Okay? Why? And so there's going to be a caveat. Why? Because if I allow you to take that unit, which you're buying at 3 million, but in the market is going for 7.6 million, you're going to distort the market again. So we have put a caveat. You can't sell until after 7 years. Okay?
Why 7?
7 years.
Why 7?
No, look, it could have been 5 years. We went for 7 years.
Yeah, why?
We think that around 7 years, okay, is a good enough period of time to have stabilized the market. And that's why we're even saying it's 7 years for you to withdraw your money. It's 7 years for you to sell to sell the unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how you guarantee that only one person owns.
Only one person buys. But you are allowed to buy for your son, who is at Nairobi University, maybe doing law.
Or under 18.
You can start saving for them.
So when they turn to 18,
when they turn to 18, you
register
bequeath
into
them. Can you imagine if that is a starter pack in life, isn't it?
Okay. PS, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Shukran.
Charles Hinga is the Principal Secretary for Housing and Urban Development. He's been explaining to us the whole issue of the Housing Fund. And thank you very much for tuning in to KTN Newsline. We have a couple of stories to come. For example, this one. Road safety lobby groups have welcomed the removal from office of National Transport and Safety Authority Director General George Njau. Addressing journalists a day after Njau was sent on compulsory leave by the NTSA board, officials of two road safety associations said the move was a step in the right direction towards reducing road carnage.